Hi, I'm Tanya and welcome to Sweet Tea Home. If you're new here, I'm a homeschooling mom and I'm also a therapist with years of experience working with children and families. We're beginning another homeschool year, and today I want to share our curriculum choices. But I want to talk about them a little differently than I think you usually hear curriculum discussed. When I choose a curriculum, I'm not just asking, is this a good curriculum? I'm asking, is this curriculum good for my child? Does it build confidence? Can I adjust it when she needs more support? Can I slow it down? Can I move ahead? Does it give me opportunities to use her strengths to support areas that are harder for her? And honestly, does she actually enjoy it? The last one matters more than sometimes than we talk about or want to admit. If a child tells me, I like this, I want to keep doing it, I'm going to pay attention to that. A curriculum can look wonderful on paper, but if the child actively dislikes using it, that's important info. And because we're homeschooling on a real family's budget, affordability matters to me too. I want resources that gives us a strong educational foundation without feeling like I have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year to provide a good education. So today I'm going to walk you through what we're using this year, why I choose each one, and most importantly, how I'm able to use these resources from a strength-based perspective. Okay, so before I get into the individual curriculum, I want to clarify what I mean by strength-based homeschooling. It does not mean ignoring the weaknesses. If my child is struggling with reading, writing, math, handwriting, we're still going to teach those skills. What it does mean is that I don't want those difficulties for my child to become her identity. Instead of saying, she's bad at reading, I want to be able to say, reading is difficult for her right now, so what support does she need? Instead of, she's just not a math person, I can ask, what part of this concept is getting in the way and what can I change? This is where scaffolding comes in. Scaffolding means giving a child enough support to successfully complete the next step, and then gradually removing that support as the skill becomes more secure. One of the biggest advantages of homeschooling is that I can do that without being tied down to a classroom calendar. In a classroom, it's like, well, here's a skill, we're gonna practice it for a day or two, and then we're moving on. Well, the beauty of homeschooling is that if we need to slow down, we can slow down and work on that skill deeper. If she got it the first go, then okay, we're moving on, and she's not sitting there bored. The curriculum gives me a framework with what to be teaching, but my child determines the pace. So first up, what we're using this year for language arts is the good and the beautiful, and we are on level 2 right now. My daughter is in 3rd grade, but level 2 is where her skill level is at right now. And one thing I love about the good and the beautiful is they have assessments that you can give your child before you purchase the curriculum, or you don't even have to purchase it, but it ended up being cheaper for us to actually buy the physical product because I made so many boo-boos trying to print it last year and spent so much money on ink. It actually turned out to be cheaper to buy it. Anyway, I digress. I love the fact that they are labeled by level instead of what grade that she's in. So, we don't have to worry about her seeing, oh, this is for 1st grade or this is for 2nd grade and feeling like she's behind. So my child actually told me that she likes the good and the beautiful. So we're gonna roll with it. If she likes it, she is going to be more interested in doing the lessons. That is a huge factor for me. I don't want to overlook my child's voice when I'm trying to make educational decisions. I also appreciate that it gives me structure without requiring me to be rigid. So what I mean by that is I can use the lessons as written when it's working, but also I can scaffold when she's having problems with something and it's becoming difficult. For example, if we're working on a writing skill and getting the answer on a paper is the barrier, I can have her tell me her answer verbally first, and then I can write down her ideas. And we can do the first example together. I can give her a sentence starter. I can reduce the amount of writing because writing is where she struggles while we're learning the concept, and then gradually increase it as the skill becomes easier. So that's scaffolding. I'm not lowering our ultimate goal. I'm just, changing the path to get there. I can also use her strengths. If she communicates better verbally than she writes, which she does, I can let that verbal strength support the writing task. She loves stories. We can talk about the story. If she needs movement, because she has ADHD and she likes to move, we can take a movement break and then return to the lesson in a minute. I don't have to spend 3 weeks on something she's already mastered either, just because the schedule says that we should. If she understands it, we move on. We don't need to go into reviews or extra practice if we don't want to. If she needs more time, we take more time. The curriculum provides academic sequence, but I provide the individualized support and pace. And also from a budget perspective, I do appreciate that the Good and Beautiful offers a very relatively affordable way to get a very substantial amount of curriculum without having to constantly buy additional resources to fill in the gaps. When I did my curriculum shopping, there were some that were like $500, and then you could buy extra stuff to go with it. And that, when we're living on a one-person income, that's just not in the budget, right? What we also are using to teach reading is Hooked on Phonics. And we have been using this curriculum since kindergarten. She is now on steps 27 and 28. This is a really good example of meeting a child at their skill level. Instead of looking at a grade level and saying, by now you should be doing this, I want to ask, what can my child do independently, and what is the next skill that she needs to build? So like I said, we started way back in kindergarten with step 1, and we have just been working on it step by step by step until she masters one step, and then we move on to the next. If the skill isn't solid, we can stay there. We can repeat it. We can practice it in shorter sessions. Sometimes we might just do a page. Sometimes we will do the whole 3 or 4 pages of a lesson. We can use repetition as support rather than treat it as evidence that she's behind. That's scaffolding in practice. So we start with what the child can do, provide support for the next step, and then gradually increase the challenge. And I could connect reading to her strengths. If she loves stories, we can use that interest to make reading meaningful. If she benefits from repetition, we repeat. If her attention is better in short bursts, which it is, we keep the practice short. So let me show you an example. So this is the lesson we're working on this week. So it introduces the topic, and the topic this week was the EER and EAR sounds. So we practiced reading the words, and depending on how her attention span is that day, we can stop there with the practice, or we can move on to the next page. And this day she was able to move on and do the practice page. Sometimes we're not. And then it goes on to a little story that she reads. And the day that we read this story, even though it was short, sometimes I need to kind of help her out to get through it because her attention span wanes. So I will read a sentence, then she will read a sentence, then I will read a sentence. And so we get to the end of the story. And then it'll move on to the next lesson. So if I need to, we also have the app that goes with these lessons. So we can go into the app and she can play games on the app to reinforce a skill until she masters it. And then we can move on to the next lesson. If she doesn't need extra practice, then we don't have to do the app if we don't want to. So that's what I mean by scaffolding. Again, we're not trying to finish a certain number of lessons just because it's Tuesday. We're trying to build the skill and the confidence. If she needs more time, she gets more time. If she masters something quickly, we move forward. Moving on to math, our pick for our math curriculum this year is the Good and the Beautiful Math, also Level 2 or Course Book 2. We started with the Good and the Beautiful last year with Level 1, and she completed that, and so we took about a month break this summer, and now we are starting with Math Level 2, and it just kind of picks up from where we left off. Again, it's not defined by grade levels. You just start with the first level that the assessment says that they're ready for, and you move through as you master. So one of the biggest things I'm watching is not just whether she gets the answer, but how she gets there. If she's struggling, I want to know why. Does she not understand the concept? Does she understand it but forget the steps? Is the page overwhelming? Does she need something concrete before moving to an abstract problem, which a lot of time in her case she does? Is she simply tired? That is an issue a lot of the times too. These are different problems, so they need different supports. I can scaffold a lesson by doing the first problem together, drawing something out, using manipulatives or real life examples, having her explain her thinking, like how she processes the problem in her brain out loud, verbally, covering up a part of a busy page if it's distracting, reducing the number of practice problems after she's demonstrated mastery. So let me show you an example of that. Here is one of the practice pages. So it is just reviewing the skills that she has already learned because it is a spiral approach. If she, however, is showing me that she already knows how to do that skill, like 4 + 8, I don't make her do the rest of the problems. For example, addition or fractions. On this day, she was really worn out and cranky and tired. We've had a busy morning, so I didn't have her finish the whole review page, and that's okay. We can pick up today where we left off last time. And if she needs another, like I said, if she needs another day or another week, we can take it. The curriculum gives us the sequence, but it doesn't dictate the speed. Okay, so my next pick is an area that my child in particular seems to struggle in. So we needed a little extra help besides what the Good and the Beautiful was providing. I don't think they provide a lot of handwriting in their language arts course. It's separate. Handwriting is another area where I intentionally think about cognitive load. It is one of the areas that my child struggles with. In fact, it is something that we are working on in occupational therapy. And this is the book that our occupational therapist recommended to us. And it is Handwriting Without Tears. A child might be trying to learn letter formation, control a pencil, think about spacing and size, simultaneously thinking about what they want to communicate to you. And that's a lot of work going on in their headspace at one time. That's a lot of cognitive loads. So one way I can scaffold that is by practicing one component at a time. We can talk through formation. I can model it. We can do a letter together, and she tries one independently. We can use tactile or multi-sensory practice if we need a little extra practice. So that means, like writing in sand or writing in foam or writing letters on a dry erase board. I don't automatically believe that filling an entire page is better than doing a few letters well. I have had some handwriting curriculums where it was just a whole full page of letter after letter after letter, like that you ended up writing like 50 times, and that got to be a little too much for her. So my theory is if you can get it right a couple of times, then we're good to go. And with handwriting without tears, let me show you an example. So here's an example of one of their pages. It shows you how to write the letter correctly. You are supposed to keep the letter in the box and start at the corners. And you only have to write it only a few times. 1, 2, 3 for practicing the V. And then it moves on to the next letter, and you only practice it a few times, and then you move on. And then there's one page where you review all the letters you just learned, just a few times. So I love that about that, so she doesn't get fatigued. So if she has demonstrated that she knows the skill, that she can perform it correctly, then we stop. If not, we can give her a little more practice without turning that experience into punishment. So what I mean by that, if we've practiced in the book and we still haven't got it, we'll do something fun with it. Like I said, some of the sensory exercises like writing in Play-Doh, writing in sand, writing on a dry erase board. So more work doesn't automatically equal more learning. If they got it, let it go or they're gonna hate it. And finally, for our, I guess you wouldn't call them extracurriculars, but for outside of our core subjects, I have created, our own science curriculum. So I made the cover, but this is probably where I have the most freedom to intentionally build strength-based learning into lessons. So I can teach a concept through a short reading. So we'll pick out a related library book, maybe find a video on YouTube. We'll have a discussion. We'll do a hands-on activity or a drawing, experiment, a printable. And this gives her multiple ways to enter the learning. If she loves talking, which she does, we talk about it. She loves hands-on activities, so we lean into those. If she wants to draw what she learned, that's another way that she can demonstrate understanding. We have her little science journal, and our first lesson was about living things. So she went outside, found 2 living things and 2 non-living things, and then she drew them in her science journal and practiced observation as a scientist would, writing down her observations, like what color it is, what size it is, where she found it. And she likes filling up notebooks, so this is a fun little learning activity for her. And she also was intrigued by the pretty butterflies, so a pretty notebook never hurts. So if she becomes fascinated by a question that we come across as we're learning, we can follow that curiosity instead of treating it like a distraction. And we do that a lot. She's like, hey, what about this? Like, I remember in a math lesson, she asked, what's the highest number you can count to? Or the highest number that exists? And I didn't know, so we heavily utilize Google in our sessions, but that's okay. It's learning, it's increasing her interest in gaining knowledge and teaching her how to get those answers. And back to the science curriculum, because I created the curriculum, I can adjust it in real time. I can simplify an assignment, I can add another activity, I can take something out that doesn't seem necessary or doesn't interest her, or I can spend 2 days on something that was supposed to take 1. So that is what I love about coming up with my own curriculum for the outside course subjects like science and social studies. What I did was to figure out kind of what I needed to be teaching, like the skills that she does need to learn, is I looked up on the state education site the core standards for the grade that she is in, and I printed those out. And so every week I can look at, okay, what is a topic that most third graders are learning about right now? Okay, let me find a book on it, let me find a video, let me make a printable, let's come up with some discussion questions. And it really is pretty simple and doesn't take that long. Whereas some of the other science curriculums I have come across, the lessons can be about 45 minutes long, which is way beyond her attention span capabilities. And not to mention a lot of them are out of our budget as well. And one of the electives that we have is Bible study. And so for Bible study, I am loving this book called The Bible Made Easy for Kids. I found it on Amazon, and it does a very good job of going in order through the Bible and explaining everything in a way that kids can understand. In fact, it's helped me understand a lot of things that I didn't quite understand before. I'm approaching this the same way. The goal isn't simply to complete a Bible assignment. I want my child to understand what she's reading. If we just sat there and read scripture, or in some of the Bible curriculum I've looked at, has been kind of over her head. If something is confusing, we stop and talk about it. If she asks a question, we explore it. If she needs something explained in a simpler language, I scaffold it. If she makes a connection to something she already knows, we use that connection. In other words, I'm helping her build a bridge from what she already understands to something new. And if y'all would like to take a look inside, I'll see if I can find where I bought this and try to link it to the video. I do not get commission or for anything. So it starts out with in the beginning, and it has lots of illustrations. And then we talk about Adam and Eve, God created man. And then about the Garden of Eden and how the order God created things with a little diagram. And then it goes on and on to right now we're talking about the flood and God's promise and what that means. And I've also printed out some Bible coloring pages just on my own off the internet, so she can color while she's listening, because sometimes having something to do while she listens to the reading helps her focus. So when I look at putting all the curriculum together, there's a common thread. I'm not looking for curriculum that is always easy. I want her to be challenged, but I want that challenge to be productive. There's a difference between this is hard, but I can do it with support, and this is so hard, I don't even want to know where to begin. I don't even want to try. We don't want that. So the first can build confidence, and the second can build avoidance. So throughout the day, I'm constantly asking, what can she do independently? Where does she need support? What strength can I use? Does she need more practice? Does she need a break? Does she already understand this? Is she ready to move on? That means the curriculum doesn't control our homeschool. It's a toolbox. The curriculum gives me the skills, the sequence, the lessons, the resources, but I decide how to use those tools for the kids sitting in front of me. And honestly, this is exactly what I was thinking when I wrote my book, Strength-Based Homeschooling. The book isn't about finding one magical curriculum that'll work for every child. It's about learning to look at the child in front of you and ask better questions. How can I scaffold this? How can I connect this to my child's strengths? How can I make it more accessible? Where does my child need independence? Where does she need support? Does she need more time? Is she ready for more of a challenge? You don't necessarily need a completely different curriculum than what you've got already. Sometimes you just need to find a different way of using the curriculum you already have. That's really the heart of my book. It's what you're seeing me do with our curriculum this year. And so my book guides you in how to do that. So if that philosophy resonates with you, I'll put information about my book, Strength-Based Homeschooling, in the description box below. It is available on Amazon, on Kindle Unlimited for free, and it is also available both in the book and the workbook version for print. So you can take a look if you like and go a little deeper into this strength-based approach. So those are our curriculum choices for the year. The Good and the Beautiful Language Arts, Hooked on Phonics, The Good and the Beautiful Math, Handwriting Without Tears, our Bible curriculum, and my own science and social studies curriculum. But the individual curriculum titles aren't really the important part. What matters to me is what I can do with them. I can scaffold, I can slow down, I can move ahead, I can use the strengths to support weaknesses, I can change how something is presented, I can reduce the amount of practice when mastery has already been demonstrated. I can give more support when it's needed. I can listen to my child's feedback, including something as simple as, Mom, I like this, I want to keep doing it, which is exactly what my child told me at the end of last year. So I can do all of that while still being mindful of a budget and, choosing resources that provide good value for our family. So, because ultimately I don't want my child to think I'm bad at reading or I'm bad at math. I want her to think this is difficult for me right now, but I can learn it. I don't want a child who never struggles, because we all are going to struggle in life, right? I want a child who understands that struggle doesn't mean that she's incapable. That is the heart of strength-based homeschooling for me. So if you're homeschooling a child who doesn't always fit neatly into the traditional educational mold, I hope this gave you some encouragement and, maybe a different way to think about the curriculum you already have at home. You don't have to find the curriculum that works for everyone, but you need to find or create a learning environment that allows your child to thrive. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to subscribe. I'll be sharing more of our homeschool journey this year, including our routines, our curriculum, learning activities, and the strength-based approach behind the choices that we're making. And if you'd like to learn more about the philosophy behind everything I talked about today, check out Strength-Based Homeschooling. I'll put the information down in the description. And thank you so much for spending part of your day with us, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.